So, if we want to talk about how to shoot in low light conditions now that it's getting dark quite early, you're in the right place. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thomas Love here from One Lens Solely, and today I want to take the chance because it started getting dark quite early, and since it's almost Christmas in the city, they started with the Christmas lights and decorations and spectacles that I wanted to show you and capture them with my camera and with my glass. But I remember when I was teaching street photography and night photography in Vancouver back in the days that all my students were complaining that I had a professional gear, a pro camera, a pro glass. So I wanted to make my life not so easy this time because I'm using a glass which is constantly at f4. f4, it's not so bright for nighttime shooting, but let's see together how to get around the limitations, because when you are out there and you want to shoot, the camera and the glass that you have are a given. There's not much that you can do about it. The lights that you're having from the ambience are a given. You cannot manage them. You are not in studio, so there's not much you can do either. And so the only solution that you might find out is I can pump up the ISO, and that's the last thing that you want to do. So let's see together. I put some notes down here because I want to tackle different points and show you with examples taken downtown here on Lake Como how to get around the limitations that you have with your own gear. So now let's say that your set of tools are the camera. That's a given. Whatever system you are using, it's fine. Whether it's Canon, Nikon, Fuji, Sony, Leica, whatever, that's great. And for the lens, of course, try to get the faster glass that you have. But even if you don't have such a fast glass like my Zeiss, which is f4 constant, I saw many ducklings, my students, they were having zoom kit lenses f3.5 to 6.3. That's fair enough. Just bear in mind that if you don't zoom in, that glass is faster, so it will help you in low light conditions. And then the lights from around you. How to make the best with the lights from around you? Well, you can get creative with composition. So, very first point, go to a part of the city when the lights around you will help you and light, so you have a lit subject. Try to make a composition where you have a lit subject. Now, I was walking around casually and I was shooting hybrid, both photos and videos, but to record myself, I went just in front of the glass of a shop because you have a lot of light hitting you, and so it helps you having a faster shutter speed. Now, keep in mind that if you choose slower static subjects to portray, it helps you because even if you have the stable in your camera, then the motion blur from the moving subject, you will still get it if you go too slow on the shutter speed. And so here, that's the second point to consider, is that people move slower during nighttime. So when you are going around and shooting street photography during daylight, you want to have 1/250th of a second. I personally go at least 3/20th or 1/500th of a second if I want to be sure that I'm freezing the moment. Then if you want to have panning and portray movements in a different way, then that's a different thing. But if you want to freeze the movement, I normally go that fast. It's not so fast if you shoot wide open with your glass, but please consider that you are not supposed to go any slower. Why? What I found out also shooting during nighttime is that if you shoot street photography during nighttime, people move slower, so you can go down to 1/250th of a second, 1/125. It's fine. You can go as low as you want if you have the IBIS or the optical image stabilization in your camera. It's just a trial and error. So if you don't want to pump the ISO that much, you can go slower with your shutter speed up to a certain point when you are introducing motion blur from the moving subjects, and then your photo will not be sharp enough. Now, if you go down with the shutter speed, you have either IBIS or OIS. I have both in my combo because I have the IBIS in the camera, which is the Sony A7C Mark II, and the OIS in the glass. It's called OSS in the Zeiss glass, optical stabilization, steady, short, whatever. And so combined, they can get me to go very slower with the shutter speed, but this is particularly helpful when you are shooting video. While if you're shooting photo, you still have the motion blur from your subject. So if you want to have a composition and shoot the landscape, fair enough, you can put the camera on a tripod. But if you don't have a tripod and if you want to shoot moving subjects, well, they give you the pace. So thanks to keep into consideration that you might have IBIS and OSS in your glass, but then people will still have some motion blur. And then if you get creative with composition, now when you're out there, I warmly suggest you go for fishing rather than hunting. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a tutorial I made up here, so find it up here and go and enjoy yourself. But fishing technique, what does it mean? That you go around the city, you see a corner of the city where the lights are good. When you know that your subject is lit, then you can do your framing perfectly and just wait for someone to casually cross your frame and then you snap your shots. I will have a few examples right here because they put the teddy bear and the heart shape for taking memories, good pictures. That's a corner for the photos, for visitors, for all the tourists that are here on Lake Como. And that's a perfect corner because it's perfectly bright and lit. And I was just waiting for someone to cross my frame, and that someone was slow enough, so 1/150th of a second, and I could also limit my ISO. Why am I saying that? Because the camera that you have nowadays, most of the newest cameras, I'm referring to full frame, but even if you have a crop factor, that's the same thing. If you go that high with a megapixel count, well, it might be a good thing to crop in during daylight, but with overnight, it doesn't help you much because the pixels are smaller and they gather less light. And so my camera here is a 33 megapixel. There are cameras 45, 60, even 100 megapixel, and that is not helping in low light. What does it mean? It means that if you have that much megapixel in your sensor, every time that you pop the ISO just a bit, then you will see noise in your photos. Then we will see how to solve it because there are a couple of tricks to consider when you're shooting overnight as well. So manage your ISO. Normally, I don't know at what point in your career you are. Probably you are still shooting in semi-automatic modes. If you go fully manual overnight, that's great. It's better to go fully manual overnight so you can manage the exposure triangle. That means how fast the aperture and the shutter speed, and then of course the ISO. Please remember the ISO is a fake thing. We discussed it already, so if you missed that episode, please find it up here. It's just an electric boost. In photography, when it started, we were shooting film, you could not change the ISO. That was not a variable, that was a given. Every time that you put your film in, it had a given amount of ISO. So the more the ISO, the more expensive the film. So you were trying to have this balance, and this is how we came out with certain tricks. So now we go back to studio. We had our session, we have our raw files, we have our raw videos, and we start the post-processing. What to keep in mind? The very first thing is that you might have your own favorite software for post-processing. I use Luminar Neo, which is plenty, especially paired with the Sony. It's a great solution, and if you want to have a discount, we will find the link down here with your discount code offers every now and then. So Luminar Neo helps me that much. Now we will take a few shots and we will do the post-processing together. The path, the workflow, it's always the same. You can shoot a bit underexposed when you're out there and recover in post. That helps you with the shutter speed. So don't pop that much ISO to have the perfect exposure, because then you will introduce noise, and the computer is more powerful than the processor in your camera. So pumping up to one stop in post, it's a good trick. So keep that in mind. Maybe stay a bit underexposed when you're out there shooting, because then you will recover in post with a more powerful processor, which is your computer. So this should not be the way to go, but if you have to find a way to have a brighter image, keep in mind this trick. And then the second thing is that with Lumina Neo, but also with other software, you can have the noise canceling. So I'm having 33 megapixel in this camera. I would have loved to have a 24 megapixel full frame for shooting at night, running gunning, but 33, you have a bit more noise. So once again, Lumina Neo helps you with the reduction of the noise, so you will have a cleaner shot in the end to use. Now, it might be the case that you only want to keep memories or share them on your social media. This is totally fine. But if you're a pro and you want to sell your pictures, then you will have to find any way to have sharper and cleaner shots possible before the delivery. So guys, stay tuned, because I will do the same walk around with another glass that I'm having. Brighton Star is sending me a 16mm f2.8 manual focus glass, and so we will have the same walk around with a faster glass with a manual focusing. Maybe I will try to get the tripod with me so we can have some landscape shots, and I will show you the city and the lights that they are projecting onto the buildings, but that's a different thing. And we will also have a street photography session, because f2.8 is a bit faster of a glass, and so always fishing, always going to hit and to shoot where you know that your subjects are lit. So try to understand in your city, or if you're visiting in the city you're visiting, where these corners are, where you can use the lights from the surrounding to have a lower shutter speed, a faster shot, a cleaner image. So with that, I hope you got some value out of this video. If you did, please remember to like it, share it on your social media, subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any videos to come, and I guess I will see you later. Thank you. Bye-bye.